Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya ki jai, Vedanta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Pramananda, all glories to these assembled, all glories to these assembled, all glories to these assembled, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. I didn't know Prabhu was going to do that. We talk on and off. He struggles to try to keep a community, a virtual community of the devoted Prabhupada disciples together, although this is quite a challenge. There's always someone willing to throw a monkey wrench into the... More than that, that's an understatement.
Sand into the sweet words?
It's more than that. More like, little hand grenade. So, and I want to thank those devotees who signed that card. That's very appreciated, your thoughtfulness and kindfulness. There's a mechanic I go to in Pikiyun. I know him for quite a long time. He's repaired the old Father Lincoln when that was under my care, and then he helps me with the Mother Caddy, 17 years old. I can tell when the caddy is needing repair, my body is needing repair. There's some sort of karmic parallel. All of a sudden, so many things wrong. All of a sudden, so many things wrong. Anyway, he has an interesting sign in his shop, and it says, "Stay humble, work hard, be kind." So this "stay humble" is very interesting. This is sometimes a discussion of what is humility. Sometimes people, even devotees, including devotees, they'll say that humility is to empty out. I was just reading one of these books on the shelves. It is to empty out and let the soul arise from matter, which I can't figure out what the heck that means, because the soul doesn't arise from matter. The soul arise from, poke out through the covering in matter, just like when we put a seed in the ground, because this is an agrarian community. So we put the seed in the ground, and then, or in the bottle or somewhere, and then it reaches its situation in which it can germinate, and then it pokes its little head out. It pokes its little head out. So that's a better metaphor for the soul, that with these watering processes, especially these inconceivable names of the Lord, inconceivably amazing names of the Lord, we reawaken, we germinate that dormant Krishna consciousness, and then we continue watering it with that same process, and then lovely Krishna prasadam and association of devotees, and of course weeding out. That's more than the important process. So, what shall be the topic of today's conversation? I can narrate some, since they're all seasoned devotees here. I can try to bring to mind some of the opportunities I had to be under the tutelage and Srila Prabhupada. I was looking, going back to Gaura Prabhu, I had an experience. I was looking on his Skype image, and his Skype image shows him, I'm not exactly sure, but taking initiation from Srila Prabhupada. Initiation is twofold. The person who initiates gives the initiation, and Srila Prabhupada had various perspectives on that, which he tried to train me into his perspective, which is very wide, all-encompassing. On the one hand, Srila Prabhupada would be frustrated with me when I was too liberal in giving a chance, and that was my response to him telling me, because he would come and go from Delhi. One year he came 9 times. He came to Delhi a total of, I can't remember, 28 times or something, and 18 times. And this one year he came about 5, and he came once, like within a period of 2 weeks. He came twice, and so then it was a short visit. I could be with him the entire time. So then he'd sit with me patiently, and he said, well, first initiation is just a chance. This is the Harinam Diksha, is just a chance. That's one perspective. You give a chance. As an illustration of this, which I had nothing to do with, it was simply observing Srila Prabhupada. There was one Punjabi lady in Delhi, a bit of a busybody. We were in a very posh neighborhood. There are the second-tier diplomats living there, and many very wealthy persons. And it was, at that time, the last subdivision. They call them in India colonies. It sounds so funny, a colony, you know. Colony doesn't sound very appealing in American English, but in British English, a colony means like a subdivision. I'm not sure what the best American word is for it. So it was the last subdivision before the old airport, the Palo airport. And after the diplomatic enclave, if you were coming from central Delhi, which is Connaught Place, you passed through Chanakyapur, aptly named. And there were some residential areas, and then an open area, and then there was the first ring road. And at that junction, that's where our place was. So, Srila Prabhupada, this lady was a bit of a busybody. She'd come in, and she was a second-grade school teacher. And you can't imagine in India what second-grade school teacher means, because the kids can, second grade, they're still very rambunctious, even anywhere, second graders. So as soon as she'd come in the room, there might be 5 of us, 10 of us, 30 of us, and then she wouldn't let any of us say anything. We'd all be listening to the school teacher, Mrs. Horton. So she came with her daughter, who worked for Air India on the international flights. And, she just came to see Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada was very gracious. He was sitting on the roof of our place, and it was a sunny day. And we put some mats, and she sat with Srila Prabhupada, and she presented this idea, Your Divine Grace, Guruji. This is my daughter. I don't remember her name. I keep making one up. But I request you to give her your mercy in the form of initiation, and she has brought her beads. So, did I tell this story?
Did she have initiation, the Punjabi lady?
No.
But she wanted her daughter to get one?
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't know if I told this story before. It's better to
I don't remember it.
give a demonstration. This is the demonstration of the one side of our outlook, which is give a chance. But this is very interesting chance. So she had never come. I doubt if her mother told her the rules, you know, she's on Air India, so obviously serving all kinds of meat and liquors, and so you can't fault someone. Sometimes they're in a bad situation. So Srila Prabhupada accepted. They were much thinner. They were the cheap wooden beads you can get. They're very tiny, so it's hard with these thicker beads. So Srila Prabhupada accepted the beads in his right hand, and she presented to him. Where, of course, in India, people are properly cultured to hand things with the right hand, and then Srila Prabhupada did like this. He took the beads and held them up, and like this, and then he held them up like this, and then he handed it back to her, and he said, "Your name is..."
Hare Krishna.
Wow.
Well, maybe Hare Krishna.
Do you remember that name?
No. I remember a lot, but you know, I was remembering the scene. I was paying more attention to photograph the scene in my mind and the nuances of that. So that was an episode of Srila Prabhupada teaching me that the holy name initiation is a chance. Okay, this is a golden chance, you know, through a Vaishnava. As I think I've mentioned this, it's always worthwhile, of how I got a chance to learn the holy name. So I'm 50, going on 53 years ago. I was taking a bus ride in Andhra Pradesh, and it was so horrible. And my eyes happened to catch the ceiling. There was something written, and I had been trained how to read the Telugu script. And I saw one word which it was difficult because the words were not clearly spaced, a little bit. So I could make it out Rama, because I had recognized the name Rama, and then Rama, Rama, Hare, Hare, Hare Krishna. So the whole ride to kind of alleviate myself partially from the misery of that journey, I was chanting Hare Krishna. So somehow that was my initiation into the name, but not an initiation through somebody directly as a formal initiation. But it was my Praveshnashatmika, my chance to get that blessed name. And the history is Lord Chaitanya had come to that spot where the owner of the bus was, and there was a Gaudiya Math, and they knew this holy name from visiting the Gaudiya Math, and he wrote that name, a Gaudiya Vaishnava, and I got indoctrinated. You see, how nice. Of course, there's no accidents. Krishna is always working very hard. Well, for Krishna it's not hard work, but better to use the word diligently, unrelentingly. Just as a parent, even a mundane parent who does not remove the thought of their dear child when they're rebellious, they're always concerned as to their well-being. And if the child reports some difficulty, the parent will feel anguish. And when the child is doing well, then the parent will experience happiness. So of course the real doing well in this material world is not the relative position that today, you know, my car is working well, and tomorrow my car is not working well, because at the end of this life we leave this car, Ahamkar, this material body, and the metal car that so far drives us around. When I was a child, I thought that car should be made of rubber. And I was designing many things. And the reason I wanted to make it of rubber, because then if you hit another person, then there would be no shock and nothing would be hurt. You see. I don't know why they didn't make it of rubber. It's a practical idea, because especially with the technology. But we're not here to give lessons in car design. This material world is foolish. We make a solution, and as a result of that solution, what happens?
We have to make another solution.
Oh no, partially right. We have to make 100 more solutions. So you're in the right direction. Isn't it true? So, like, I don't want to give an example of car, but everything we do in this material world, we think we use our brains, material brains. And because they're material brains, we think of material solutions to what we perceive as problems. So, I find a very strange thing here in South Mississippi. I can't say if it's true in Louisiana. Yes, it's true in Louisiana, at least in South Louisiana. I know it's not true in Florida, is that when it starts to rain, people, almost every single person, they have comments, oh, you know, it's so messy outside. So I tell people, I explain to them, I don't quote in Sanskrit the verse from Bhagavad Gita, Parajagnana Sambhava, that this rain is like the happy tears of God. Because when we're sad, then we cry, and these are cold tears. Huh? But when we're happy, which not too many people experience this, but when we're so happy, when we experience love, extreme love for someone, then we cry a different kind of tear, warm tears.
Isn't it the other way around?
Huh?
Isn't it the other way around?
Maybe. I get it mixed up. I get everything mixed up, so it's quite possible. But the principle is right. That I didn't mix up. Is it the other way around? Cold
Yeah,
tears?
I think so, Prabhu.
I think so. It's the other way around.
It's the other way around? Okay, good. The error is wise. Yes, how else will you learn? Fortunately, in the younger age, as we grow younger, we make more errors and we can learn more things. So, it's the cold tears are happiness.
Yes.
Okay, good. I'll get it right. But the principle is that, and that makes more sense for the rain, because generally rain is cold. So without rain, how long will it exist? Not very long. We're not so much experienced this problem yet in the United States, but in India and other places in the world, like in India, Tamil Nadu, because I was traveling there for 2 years. Oh my goodness, you know, even on good years, like in cities like Coimbatore, they have to ration water, where even in the cities, in the good neighborhoods, they're getting water every 3 days, sometimes every 5 days. Just imagine that kind of life. And they're very limited. In the villages, people stand for hours waiting for the government. Because if you dig a hole in the ground, what happens is they start drilling holes in the ground because there's no proper rain and no catchment. So they drill a hole 100 feet. The neighbor drills a hole 150 feet, so then you have to go 200 feet, and all of a sudden there's no water in the ground. This boring into the earth should be the first thing prohibited by an agrarian conscious government, because you ruin the water table. You should not allow that and create catchments anyway. So these tears, by water we survive. And how does water become available in this material world? Another eye, something to do with the eye. It's the eye of God is the sun. So the sun is by which we live in this material world. The sun creates the growth in plants, and the plants need water, and the sun evaporates that water. And then the water, like if something's hot, you have the accumulation, what is it called? Condensation on the outside. And so similarly, the condensation of water, and then you have rain, and this is cycle. So we are always dependent on God. when we see in the material world the actions of the Lord, then the devotee becomes happy. But through the material perspective, we see the world as vacant. We don't see the hand of God at every moment. So the natural state of consciousness, we call that Krishna consciousness. It's not that we call it Krishna consciousness. Of course, everyone here are two friends from Maharashtra. You're both from Maharashtra?
We? No, from Tamil Nadu.
You're Tamil Nadu?
Yes.
I see. So then where in Tamil Nadu?
Vellore.
Vellore.
Pretty close to Chennai City.
Yeah, I know Vellore. I've been through Vellore. For 2 years I traveled in Tamil Nadu. Somehow Krishna had a plan for me to travel in Tamil Nadu. It's all against my plans. Yes, so you understand that difficulty in Tamil Nadu, the problem with water. So, going back to my topic, humility, and the interactions with Srila Prabhupada of initiation, and that incident in which Srila Prabhupada expressed his excellent kindness to give a chance, to a lady who probably didn't know what the regulated principles were, and Prabhupada didn't even discuss how many rounds to chant, nothing. He just initiated her and had casual conversation. So then these episodes kept on going. Srila Prabhupada would come, and then he'd say, do you have anybody to recommend? And so then there were two young men who were coming, and they were following nicely, So, and then so I recommended them to Srila Prabhupada, and then I'm giving the short form of it, his reaction was that I should be more strict. So it's not like there was a no-win situation, but the perspective of it would be a no-win situation. And so this kept on coming. Srila Prabhupada would come and he'd have these informal initiations, and then he'd come. And so I'd take one position, and then I'd try to adjust it according to his instructions and be a little more generous. And then I'd find out that it was not the correct thing. In the end, and this is very personal, so in the end, Srila Prabhupada was sitting with me and he was just shaking his head. And he's saying, "What's wrong with you?" He says, "The problem is you don't know how to reform them." So I still feel this perplexity, how to, do it right. But we can talk about the principle of reform. I can extract two different points and blend them together for your pontification. One of the incidents, Srila Prabhupada would have me come into his room when, I don't want to repeat it, but in the very beginning of the interactions, he humbly requested me that whenever I had a spare moment, I should come in his room and sit and listen. And then he started, laying out for me, doling out so many responsibilities. And then on top of that, he started to visit Delhi more and more often. And then he called me so many times to be with him, 60 more times. So then I'd be in Vrindavan, which I was in privately, informally his supervisor of whatever was going on in Vrindavan. I was the one he'd get information from. I was the one he'd lean on to get things done. So it caused me to interact with him a lot, and especially his stays in Delhi. So I was basically except when there were groups of persons, in which I would just backbench. When I'd come in his room and I was alone, I'd always be hoping that he'd ignore me, because I thought this is such a extremely special personality, you know. I don't know how I'm in that room, you know, but it's my opportunity and also my obligation in a sense. So. But he never ignored me, except for a couple of times. So then he'd start having conversations with me, no matter what he was doing. And one of the conversations got around to the pastime in the Krishna book, how Lord Krishna kills Uttara. So what's the essence, the takeaway from the killing of Uttara? Can someone give me the essence, the takeaway from reading the pastime, other than, you know, seeing Krishna's wonderful acts, that as a 6-month-old child he could kill this huge, she's really big, what is she, 12 miles long? Or 8?
Krishna is anxious to accept whatever we have to offer him.
And as a result,
She went back home to Godhead.
Yeah.
and what was her position in the spiritual world?
Mother.
Mother. Mother. Just as Mother Yashoda. She did the activity of a nurse. She was not Krishna's mother, but she gave him milk with the intention of killing Krishna. Because Krishna, Prabhupada describes from the Bhagavatam, that it's just like a coal within a pile of ashes. So when the coal is a pile of ashes, you can't see the glow, but if you brush away the ashes, then you can see it's red hot. So Krishna is in disguise, playing out the role of an ordinary person, but he's always Krishna. He's always Krishna. He always carries the potencies that we cannot estimate. We cannot estimate Krishna's potency. So within our capacity to understand his potencies, he shows us something that's magnificent and amazing, within what our little brains can conceive, you know. So, just like Putana is so big. Does anybody remember? I always get it mixed up. Agashura and Putana, they were both really big. One was 8 miles, the other was 12 miles. So even 8 miles, imagine some person who, like 8 miles long, you know, all the way down, you know. If you went straight, it would be almost to 59, not quite, but almost you went straight over the trees, you know, boom, you know, and she crashed, and a big mess what to do with her. So they chopped her up, burned her, and it smelled wonderful because she was liberated. Her body had become transcendentalized. So Srila Prabhupada gave this, he was discussing this, and then he looked at me. I always felt so embarrassed, you know, the intimacy that he looked at me, you know, it's just like he would look at me with such kindness, and we'd just look at each other sometimes for a very long time, you know, thinking, whoa, you know, I'd rather be, not be here, I'd rather be, you know, most of the time if he wasn't talking to me, I'd look at my knees and my toes and just hope that I would merge into the wall, you know, if I had a custom. I'm not here. But I'd watch him with fascination. And, you know, so then he said, just see how Krishna always takes the bright side. So this is part 1 of 2 parts that I want to meld together to say, what's the time now?
1:26.
Okay.
Did you say right side or bright side?
The bright side.
Bright side.
Krishna always takes the bright side. So Putana came with very bad motives. She was an anksha of Kamsa. She was the emissary, and she was a nasty piece of work. She had killed thousands and thousands of children. She was just horrible, you know, just killing a child is horrendous, you know. in killing a child mercilessly without any feeling, and enjoying it, that's even more merciless. But killing thousands and thousands of, not just children, but Krishna's friends, Krishna's friends, Krishna's relatives, the cowherd boys, the cowherd girls, the gopas, the gopis. This is who she aimed at, to exterminate all the Braj. This was her mentality. And Krishna, even though he was a small child, he very well knew everything. And yet, because she succeeded in serving him, he took the bright side. So the second, which I will narrate, and then just give you the suggestion to think about to combine them. And all of this relates to humility. It might be difficult to capture how this is the class in humility, because this perspective that Srila Prabhupada is revealing to me in person. I mean, one thing is to read his books and to observe him and read about him. The other thing is to actually see him talking about this and see how he's saturated with these feelings. So this evokes humility, because to see how we are the servant and how we serve in Lord Krishna's mission, Lord Chaitanya's mission, requires humility, that we come out of this identity and we see the identity of others. So the second narrative, there was a person who Srila Prabhupada had met. I had cultivated many people who we had met before, and one of them was Guljari Lal Nanda, who was twice an interim Prime Minister of India. He had been the President of India, because he was very popular in the Congress party, very reputed man from Kurukshetra. Very nice Vaishnava. Srila Prabhupada had met him a few times, and then I met him, and I cultivated his resurgence and interactions with Srila Prabhupada. And we were having a festival, and I had brought Gurjari and invited him to meet Srila Prabhupada again. He had met him many times, and normally when Srila Prabhupada would talk to people, invariably, not just normally, invariably he would be very excited, very enthusiastic. Utsahan, he is the embodiment of enthusiasm in service of Krishna. The core, we can say, if you want to know the health of the soul, the healthy condition of the soul, the spiritual condition of the soul, the core of that is utsaha, enthusiasm. There are other things that help us to manage that enthusiasm, to make it brighter, to find outlets for that enthusiasm. But the core of the consciousness of the soul is enthusiasm for Krishna consciousness, is enthusiasm and then in that enthusiastic stage, then everything becomes bright. Krishna reveals himself to the enthusiastic devotee. The devotee is so enthusiastic, any opportunity to hear about Krishna, serve Krishna, and especially to serve Krishna as devotee, and especially to serve those who are the wayward devotees. So normally, invariably, Srila Prabhupada was very enthusiastic to talk about Krishna, especially to preach, means help people, including us. We're also fledglings. But in this case, I was watching Srila Prabhupada with Gurjari Lal Nanda. Since I had invited Nandaji, I made it a point especially to sit there and be part of the conversation. And I watched Srila Prabhupada talking to him various aspects of Krishna consciousness, and also about Kurukshetra, but mostly about Gita. And I never saw Srila Prabhupada, never So, I mean, I saw Srila Prabhupada, besides preaching to groups of people, but personally, at least I was in 1,000 preaching sessions, at least. So he's always so enthusiastic. But this time, it took it all. I never saw him this enthusiastic before or after. I mean, it's hard to explain, without minimizing his enthusiasm in other situations. So Prabhupada was just more than glowing. He was just so animated. He was so excited, beyond compare. Then I came into the room after seeing Gujarananda was going to leave, so I escorted him properly to his car, said my goodbyes, saw him drive off, and then returned to the fold of Srila Prabhupada, and he was sitting there. And Srila Prabhupada was sitting behind his desk, and his left knee, his right knee was up in the air. He was sitting with his right knee up, and so he had his arm was resting on his knee, and then Srila Prabhupada was looking at me, and he was just bursting with this, what he wanted to tell me, his own observation on his own, what he was doing. He's teaching me, but he was also so excited he wanted to share it with me. So Srila Prabhupada, he raised his hand up in the air and spread out his fingers, so just like the peacock fan, kind of, and he motioned from his elbow, his hand, the forearm of his hand, arm back and forth, and he said, preaching is to see the spiritual spark and fan it. So this is not just the essence of preaching, but this is the essence of how we can see our own perspective becoming the healthy perspective of Krishna consciousness, of our soul, of ourself, is to see not only how we're facilitating others, combining these two things. Seeing that spiritual spark means that we see what we try to see what Krishna is seeing. We try to see what the humble, kind devotees are seeing. You see? The bright side, that little spark, no matter how small it is. And then to fan it. The key, I thought about this thousands of times, and I realized that where do I first look for the spark? Where do I first look for that spark? I have to find that spark in myself. I have to find those things in me that are a proclivity, a natural tendency, that are the little sparks that somehow emerge by the kindness of the association of Vaishnavas. My tendency, my proclivity to serving Krishna. As much as my spark is blazing, that much I can see other people's sparks. This is the key. So with that, I'll conclude the class. Little lessons from the Association of Srila Prabhupada. When I saw Gaur Prabhu's picture of him taking the beads from Srila Prabhupada, I thought, I've never spent any time with Srila Prabhupada. I know it's an odd thing to say, but it was something beyond me that I was with him. I'm writing different series of books, and one series of books is The Reluctant Monk, which is kind of how Krishna arranged different things in my life, so that even though I did not conceive of myself being such, I walked into I didn't join the Hare Krishna movement. I was quite askance of the movement because it didn't fit a lot of things that Indian Vaishnavas would accept. But I definitely allied with it, and I walked into the temple wanting to live in the Vaishnava Association. But The second book is The Reluctant Disciple. Yeah, because if it were up to me, then I would be looking for the third generation, and at the age of 58, I would have been seeking initiation, thinking, well, I'm still not ready, but it's important to do this, because I thought, looking at myself honestly, I thought, you know, to have a standard of this, the commitment of, you know, lifetime, not just one lifetime, but eternally being someone's disciple, and to lifetimes of following the principles, and you know, that's a very big commitment. So I didn't want to avoid making the commitment. I was making that, but I thought, you know, to give my word to someone that I'll do it, that was, you know, even a lot to the third generation. But of course, Rupanuga Prabhu had a different plan, and Srila Prabhupada and Krishna had another plan. Obviously, although I'm reluctant to accept it. And there I was, associating with Srila Prabhupada. So, do we have any questions from today's talks? Yes, Prabhu.
How is the books coming, Prabhu?
I had to put things aside because some new, you know, my car literally was having some problems, which was a distraction, but this car had some other provided some distractions for me. So that seems to be now in a rhythm where I can manage my time, because it was crazy, you know, driving up to Jackson and then come back and have one day, and then I'm driving up to Laurel, and then I have to drive to Poplarville, and then I have to drive to Picayune, and then drive to Poplarville and Picayune, and then I'm up to, you know, so little distracting to get into a rhythm. So I think that soon the fundamentals of those two books are there. So just a couple of chapters have to be polished. Then I have to write them out. Thank you for asking.
Thank you, Prabhu.
I definitely need Krishna's help, especially for what I want to achieve in the books. Yes, Mataji.
Yes, thank you so much. How are they going to be distributed?
Oh, I don't know.
An avenue set already?
This is, you know, actually the odd thing is that my formal profession, my last formal profession, I've had many different, like monetary professions, monetarily organized professions, as well as in ISKCON, many professions. And in ISKCON, I was a BBT manager, I set up BBT distribution, book printing, everything. And I also used to have a printing press that I was a partner in, and I have a vanity press where I got people published and distributed. So I need to get this done, then I'll think about it. Because it's you know, it kind of becomes a distraction. Because what's the good? I know it's necessary. There are many means. The book on Reluctant Mendicant could become a small book through small book publishers. And it also can be used in universities, because in that book I describe the characteristics of an Aboriginal tribe in India that had never been documented, and it deals with so many topics. And it's also a Peace Corps book, you know, the history of a Peace Corps volunteer who goes native. But I never viewed myself going native, which makes it interesting, and it's a book on it. So it can be shaped in many ways. So, you know, I have the purpose in my writing the book Reluctant Mendicant is to, I'm quite reluctant hesitant to write it, but Krishna arranged such a interesting path for me, and I just took it like, you know, I regarded it, but I took it like, you live your own life and it's normal, right? But in many ways, it's a good way to present the approach to Krishna consciousness. Because in the West, I see that people, they look at Krishna consciousness as something, even those who are in it and born in it, is something foreign to the native culture. So you join that movement. And in India, people have this as their identity, is it not? Krishna consciousness? Aapko shubh naam? Sorry, I shouldn't speak Hindi because...
Sorry?
What is your name, sir?
Raja?
Raja. In India, people are naturally Krishna conscious, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the thing is that if you're naturally Krishna conscious, to go further and to start learning lessons, how to improve it, many times we're neglectful of what we have. So Srila Prabhupada faced that, and that's why he brought the Western to India, and to reignite that enthusiasm and eagerness to progress, because it's a progressing thing. So mine was neither. It was like an Indian child born in America of Vaishnava parents who somehow went back to India, and then Krishna filled it all in. And even my parents taught me, like, in a sense, some Vaishnava culture. So superficially, but the essence. So it's easy spoon feeding, through exciting, crazy things. Living with the tribals, living in India in the 1960s. It's still the British influence, and they're all like crazy, wild stories. Getting on a bus, and how I was introduced to Krishna, by this Brahmin who served me prasadam, and then how I was introduced to chanting Narayan by this old man who was dying, and it's active, so it's like a ride. So we'll see. Hopefully, it will bring people to the Krishna consciousness movement in what I feel is very well prepared, with a very good perspective. Because sometimes we look at the movement and think that's primary. So in some ways it's true. Or, the organization of ISKCON, let's put it like, to start with there. So then we start thinking that that's primary, which in a certain sense is true, but then we might take it further and look at the movement of Lord Chaitanya and think that is primary. But what I think is more broad is to look at the basis of all of that, and to see what Lord Chaitanya's movement is bringing to us, and what the organization is helping us to enable us to accomplish, and to put that in the perspective of people who approach this organization. Because sometimes we get another perspective. I was living in the Los Angeles temple for a while, in 1997, as a humble assistant to a godbrother, preaching, carrying his bag literally. And one of the brahmacharis there told me that his guru told him that anybody who lives outside the temple is in Maya. And I said, does that mean that everybody in the temple is Krishna conscious? And he says, I guess so. So I tried to elevate him. I don't think that his guru told him that, but it was his misunderstanding. So that subverts our being able to see the sparks, right? If we start to see this, we start to see what our actual mission is for ourselves and others, which is to become Krishna conscious. And that is the goal of the Sanatana Dharma. That is the goal of the Vedic teachings. That is the goal with the pearl within the oyster of the Indian culture. The Indian culture is not the oyster, all these trappings of clothing and, food and dance and rituals, or even language, or even the temples. But the pearl, the essence of the Indian culture, is that it enables us to regain our original spiritual nature, for that seed to sprout from the ground. And if we forget about that, Triguna Vishaya, Nistriguna Chitta, Krishna warns Arjuna, don't get distracted by all these other things in the Vedas, especially Indian culture. So the essence, that pearl, that indescribably valuable part of the Indian culture is Krishna consciousness, which is what the Vedic literature gives us. So thank you all very much for inviting me to share some words. I hope that it has been beneficial and bring out a source of enthusiasm. Hare Krishna.